So we are.
Yeah, let's start with that theme.
So we are live on YouTube. This is the first edition of My Quorum. Anchor being Apollo and Kavina. AJ doing national stats, and Art doing our historical pieces. This is going to be the origins of policing. Again, this is the very first episode of My Quorum. Art is drinking cream soda right now.
It's cream soda. Yeah.
Someone's getting tired.
We are at commercial break. We're going to begin shortly.
Everyone already checked their mics?
I got 1 minute, remember, to start off with.
Is this?
That right there goes at the end.
Okay.
That's at the end in the civil deliverance.
So you want
make sure
so
you
the
know.
first thing we're gonna play is.
I'll let you know. I'll be talking to you, like saying we're gonna have a clip, and you know.
Okay, but I see something here where it says Bussa.
Busa is the theme, the name of the theme music.
Okay.
This, the name.
So
of
is
the
that
song
gonna play on the opening intro or what?
Opening intro or what? Yes, the one that says opening intro is opening intro. That plays in the beginning. There's an intro, outro, and one that divides up the segments.
Okay, I got you. So you got main intro, outro, and transition.
Yeah, like the panel discussion and civil deliverance before going to commercial. When coming back from commercial, that's transition.
Okay, so you want me to play the main one right before you start talking then, right?
Yes.
Okay, then put that in there right now.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna put that right behind the disclaimer.
Yes, sir.
Okay, there we go. And then this one I just got playing, that's gonna be at the end of the whole thing.
Selfie time.
That's gonna be in the deliverance section.
Okay, I'm gonna try to email that to myself.
Hook her up, Kavina.
Okay.
I will cue you on that though.
So we're
And I'll
almost
be like, play the clip from Ben Crump, and then you'll know when to play it.
starting.
I might just play it from my phone. Okay.
And that's after Genevieve Jones is in. I'm ready to roll, ladies and gentlemen. I'm on blood fire.
Free termite inspections. Contact them at 877-277-3970.
I'm gonna hide that. No, I'm just put you
I
put it
feel
right
bad.
Next to the mic.
I
You
mean,
put it right next to the mic. It's fine.
This is actually a lot of stuff to do at once. I hope I can do it.
All right, we should be starting now, yeah. Don't be nervous. We're all here together. Especially you, baby. So, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at everyone else's notes. What's wrong? Where did it go? Okay, perfect. Let me see that. Guys, I lost my IDs and Ada just found them for me.
She found your IDs?
Yeah, the Navy officially retired. I didn't have my ID. Thank you. My Quorum!
Bring it.
Stand by.
Yes, sir. Yeah! That's how dreams come to life. Welcome to the Maya Quorum. This is our inaugural show. I am so very thankful to be here with you today. And I hope all of our listeners let everyone know that this is a show that can definitely help bring awareness in the situations that are taking place. My name is Apollo Olango, and as you know, we suffered a terrible loss in our family in 2016, October, when my brother Alfred Olango was gunned down in El Cajon City by a law officer that did not take the time to assess the situation properly. I have been offered this circumstance at the moment with Tayari, where I can actually have a radio show to attempt to address some solutions to these issues and provide discussions that actually can bring us some resolutions. I'd like to start off by introducing my co-anchor, Kavina Satterfield. She's with us here. I've known her for quite a bit. We actually went to Roosevelt Junior High together. Kavina, please introduce yourself.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Apollo. My name is Kavina Satterfield. I was born and raised here in San Diego, California. Like Apollo said, I went to Roosevelt Junior High School right there by the San Diego Zoo. And I'm a mother of 2 kings. I'm proud to be here in San Diego. I'm a lifelong student of social science, bioscience, and everything that has to do with the earth and humans living as part of that. I'm a representative of female divinity, and I'm here to bring my perspective on how we can encourage the population here in San Diego and across the nation to help each other, to use your power within, and to know yourself so that you can tend to your own universe. Thank you, Apollo.
Art, this is Art Fusco.
Hi, how you guys doing? My name's Art Fusco. I actually used to be, long ago, I used to be a Master at Arms in the Navy, which is basically the Navy equivalent of military police. But it was very evident that there was a lot of bullying in this job that I used to have, and I didn't really like it. I did try to be a hard ass, but it really wasn't in my nature. So I got out, and so now I'm just trying to help out those who are affected by police violence and all that. Happy to help.
Thank you, Art.
Mrs. Cat.
Hi, my name is Kat. I'm a cop watcher with United Against Police Terror. Unfortunately, I was sexually assaulted by an LAPD officer about a decade ago, and because I track instances of brutalities and deaths in San Diego County, I also cop watch. So that's the reason why I'm here, just to get stats on what's happening on a local level.
Thank you, Kat.
Thank you very much, Kat. This segment of the show, we like to discuss some of the hopes that we have for this show and the people that we want to reach and the ideas that we want to brew up. We like to really get the words out there that need to be gotten.
Yes,
Kavina?
yes, thank you, Apollo. So in this program, we're going to go over several different topics. The way that we're going to lay it out for today, since it's the first time that we've been on the air, I want to give you a brief on how we're going to go into the topics. So we're going to start with the history of policing in America. A lot of us understand that police are necessary in many communities. We get it. We understand authority is necessary. I also served in the Navy as a military police officer, and so I'm all for structure. So we want to go into the history first of policing here in this country. Also the origins of law enforcement, where it comes from, and why do we need that in our population? Why can't we police our own communities? What is the difference between policing our own homes and policing ourselves when we're outside of our home? We should be able to be accountable for all of our actions. So we're going to go into that. Also the background of policing, specifically here in San Diego. A lot of you know that we're right here by Mexico. Baja California is actually a part of Mexico.
Right.
And at one point, we were all a part of a different culture here.
That's true.
So we want to understand what happened, what's going on that makes even us here, people that understand minority, we understand different cultures, but we're still being policed in a way that we cannot grasp. So we want to go into that also.
Definitely. Art, what are your hopes for the show?
I'm hoping that we can actually push for some sort of real change legislatively.
Yes.
Because that's really the
That's
only
a
way
big
that
deal.
it's really exactly. It's really the only way that we will get them to behave the way we want them to behave.
Definitely.
Otherwise, they're just going to continue to run rampant.
How about you, Kat? What are your hopes for the show?
Well, Apollo, I am hoping to bring San Diego County to the forefront as far as issues, as far as people killed by police. I know your brother Apollo Alfred did make national attention, but he is only one of, I think, close to 1,000 people killed from 1950 to the present that we track in San Diego County from every branch of law enforcement. There's a lot of solidarity in other cities that San Diego does, but it's to...
And you research these facts too, Kat.
We do research these facts. And basically our motto is wanting to respond and prevent what police do versus only react from the consequences of what police do. So it's important to show up before somebody is killed.
Definitely. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. In today's show, we'd like to summarize it so you can get a better idea of exactly what the purpose of this particular show is. Every show that we have every Saturday is going to have a specific theme, a specific title that we're going to try to get into. I like to call them the meat and potatoes, what really matters. To get to the source, to the nucleus of certain subject matters is the only way that we can open it up to see what those resolutions can be, to turn it into what we hope that it can be one day. So I'd like to turn this over to my co-anchor, Kavina Satterfield, to give us the program summary for today's summary, which is early history of police in America. That's our topic today. We would like to give a briefing on what that's about and how we intend to carry out this information and turn it into something that can be used in the future. Thank you very much. Ms. Satterfield?
Thank you, Apollo. Well, like I said before, we want to go into the history of policing in America. We're going to structure it with the origins of law enforcement. We have Art here who's going to actually walk us through that. He's done so much research working alongside Kat and myself, looking into all of the different backgrounds that have brought us to this point. We also want to delve into the current events here in San Diego that also broadcast policing and how it plays with our laws and our regulations here in the county. Then we're going to go through a panel discussion where we're all going to give our perspective on different events and how it influences our decisions as people here in San Diego and just living as different races, ethnicities. We have children. And we also want to bring the community to get involved. So later in the show, we're going to do community interactions where we allow everyone to call in. We're going to read emails and responses.
Yes, and the phone number to call into will be 619-919-2305. I'll repeat, 619-919-2305. Please call in so that we can engage in a discussion that surprisingly might turn into something that really enlightens an individual. Definitely.
We want to talk to you.
That's right. And at the end of the show, we offer the civil deliverance. We have a special guest today, an attorney, Genevieve Jones, who's going to be offering her civil deliverance. And it's basically a way for us to offer a tool out to the public to aid them in any way that it can, whatever they're going through, mostly with the topic or the theme of the day. We want to use that opportunity for the lawyer to disclose, what do we do next? Do we need to go downtown and fill out a form? Are we talking about our rights here? Do we need to change how we apply for ID cards?
Exactly.
What is happening? So we have a lawyer on hand here that we're going to address at the end so that she can give us the civil deliverance. All right. So thank you.
That is a great overview, and I think it touches on everything that we definitely need to get to. I also want to get more into the panel discussion, give you more of an overview of what that's going to be about. Today, it's going to be me, Apollo Olango. It will be Kavina Satterfield that will be giving her perception. These perceptions come from our backgrounds in life, what we have seen, the treacherous situations that we've been forced to overcome, whether it's working as a Navy cop and realizing that some of those particular rules just do not lead to any kind of positivity, and deciding you don't want to be a part of it and stepping back. That kind of perception, I think, might open up a lot of different subjects to be discussed and to continue so on and so forth. And I know it's difficult for a cat to look at all those numbers every day and back of her mind, she actually knows that those numbers represent sorrow and loss and tears and just broken hearts. People's lives. And when it's looked at by government officials, they don't really feel that aspect of it. They don't feel that loss. They just see numbers. 1,000, that's not too bad. We're keeping it between. That's a lot of people.
They're human lives.
They're human lives, and I think that they should be preserved. I think a lot of people believe that the preservation of human life is something that is totally important. And
absolutely.
Definitely. So I'd like to turn the microphone over for Art Fusco's historical anchor, and that is basically going to break down and start up our quorum discussion. So make sure that you pay attention to what Mr. Fusco has to say, and I think that. Go ahead.
All right, thanks, Apollo. So yeah, today's historical anchor is going to be about the history of the origins of law enforcement, starting with the sheriff. Now, back in England, it's broken up into these county-like things called shires, and they were governed by a guy that they called a reeve that answered directly to the king.
Okay.
Over time, the word shire and reeve came together to become sheriff.
Sheriff. Wow.
And of course, that was exported to North America. Mm-hmm. And as city populations grew in the Industrial Revolution in North America, mm-hmm. it became harder and harder for the sheriff and his deputies to keep order in a single county. Yeah. So what happened was they started night watches and they started city marshals. They started popping up all over the cities. And then in the northern states, workers started striking for better pay and safer working conditions. But instead of them actually getting a negotiation, the factories just hired more workers. Okay. So you have the factory.
Kind of like scabs.
Right. So you have this factory, and then you've got a line of picketers. Okay. Right. And instead of the factory would hire these workers who would have to cross the picket line in order to get to work. So, they would get heckled and all that. Okay. And so they would get heckled as they would get into the factories. So in order to protect those workers, the factories hired a private police firm called the Pinkerton National Detective Agency to escort these workers to work.
Okay. So you need to tell me policing started from a strike. Basically, well, people were on strike and they needed policing.
In a way, it was. I mean, that was at least in the northern states where people were getting rowdy because they wanted safer working conditions and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So as they would escort these people through the crowds, they would beat the picketers. Wow. Right. So they would beat these people as they would and that was in the northern states. In the southern states, there was still agricultural, and so there was a lot of slaves who would occasionally escape into the northern states. Okay. And so to prevent all the escapes, people took it upon themselves to become fugitive slave catchers. Oh wow! And they started these slave patrols, but they weren't just limiting themselves to runaway slaves.
So policing in the South basically started because of controlling of property, which is a human being.
Yes, controlling human beings.
Which is a property at that time. It was property.
Back then it was property, yes.
Exactly. So retrieve my property.
It's still property now. We are human capital. Wow. Maritime rule.
So I mean, so they would basically police any slave. They would be the judge, jury, and executioner. Wow. If you watch the 2016 movie Birth of a Nation, it's based on a true story.
And please be careful when you watch that movie. I cried for days. I'm still crying about it.
Yeah, get some Kleenex.
The man who beat Matt Turner's wife to a lumpy pulp was the slave catcher. Oh, wow. In that one, yeah. So while the sheriff was usually elected, police are usually hired by a city. So the man who the first police organization organized was the Philadelphia, city of Philadelphia, which was the first one to have like a little 8-person police force. Okay. And then New York followed after that. And
I think I'm going to touch on this part on my deliverance as well.
Okay. Yeah, so they were the first ones that were to have uniforms. Wow. So, that was... Soon every major city had one.
And hopefully we get to talk on that. Why the uniform and what's up with the uniform. They got badges and merits.
Right. So the first law enforcement entity in San Diego was the sheriff's department. It was the in 1850, with the first one being Augustin Harasdy. He would set the tone for future agencies. He was so inept that he would help bankrupt the city by building a town jail for 7,000 of the Treasury's 13,000.
Wow.
They only had 13,000. They spent half of it on the jail, and the first person that they put in that jail escaped within 4 hours.
Of course.
Yeah.
That was El Chapo's grandfather.
Right. So that was basically the San Diego Police Department would later be established in 1889 with Joseph Cognier being the who was the first the 11th sheriff as the first chief of police.
Okay.
Today, the police chief is David Niesling.
Write
yes,
that name down.
I got to meet him.
Yes,
I got to meet him. He seems to be saying the right things. We're just waiting for execution. That's all.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in the future. And the sheriff is William Gore, who is right now he's for an election. So when we come back,
That's awesome.
we'll be talking about the reason why law enforcement actually exists,
Okay.
as opposed to why they say they exist. They warp the heck out of that,
Okay.
as well as similar agencies. So yeah, that's basically going to be my historical anchor for the day.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Art. That
And,
was awesome. I
yeah.
appreciate that.
Awesome. So when we come back, we'll come back.
We'll be taking a 3-minute break right now, so we'd like to thank you very much. Please stay with us. We'll be here waiting for you, and our panel discussion will be taking off. So please come through. Call in at 619-919-2305 once the community interaction kicks in. Thank you very much. See you when you get back.
Yay.
Let's do a little wave like
You know what? I love when we can talk about the fugitive slave laws and the development of modern policing.
Somebody bring
Unless
a
we
little towel, dap me
don't
off
have
real
time
quick.
Yay.
Give me a hug.
You are a huggy person,
I
Kavina.
told you.
Panel discussion, 22 minutes.
So
how are we going to break down this panel discussion when we return?
I was telling Art about the fugitive slave laws. Maybe we can go into, unless you think that kind of goes backwards.
I can go back to that. I still have all that.
Okay.
I think that what
So
we're doing is a good flow.
we could either talk. You can either discuss the fugitive slave laws, which I have, development of modern policing, which
When we
talks
come back,
about the
what am I supposed to
politics
talk
involved
about?
with policing,
Right.
I could talk about some things. I
and
wanna
politics
talk
and
about
police in
how-
America,
We have
1800 to
20
1900.
we're coming into
Well,
our panel
no,
discussion. We have to
sorry,
introduce
I
our
should
panel
skip
discussion.
to
So who's
early
gonna
police
introduce the panel
misconduct,
discussion?
You're going to introduce the panel discussion.
and
But I'm
that
not
goes
gonna talk
into
first, right?
1900 to
That's why I'm doing it,
1940.
because I don't want to introduce the panel discussion and continue to talk for 5 minutes.
Right,
You know,
so I'll introduce the panel
this
discussion.
is our segment.
And we're going to go into our own perspectives on policing in America.
Exactly.
And we're going to talk about how we feel because we are coming from different
related
backgrounds.
early history of policing. It has to all tie in, and I'll jump in there, and I will take my first 5 minutes
I love
After I
Kavita.
introduce you.
after you introduce me. And
And we're
then,
going to start with Apollo. That's what I'm saying. I'm sorry. I go into rehearsal mode
All
because
good.
I need to know what I'm going to
Yes.
say just for that.
yeah, you have like basically 2 minutes to introduce me.
I'm going to introduce
I don't know why my alarm
Introduce
is going off
the
on my
panel
phone.
discussion.
I don't
what
want
it
to stop the
is,
stream
and then introduce the first person that's going to be going. Let them know that you will be following, and then Art, and then her, and that's going to be our panel discussion segment. And then you drop that on them, and by the end of 2 minutes, you should be passing it off to me.
Yes, I will. And then when you're done talking, are you going to can you pass it to Art and then pass it to me, please?
You wanted to go to Art first?
Yeah, I want to
Stand
go
by.
last
She's going last.
Stand by.
before her.
Fugitive slave laws helped.
You got 20 seconds.
You want to drop the song?
Are you going to pass it to me or him?
Drop the track to bring us in, please. Huh? I should pass it to you, then to him,
Okay,
to her.
then just keep it like that because I just want to know which way to
Are
go.
you ready?
Yes, 2 minutes. I'll
Mics
welcome my
hot.
brother back. I won't.
Mics are hot.
Hi, welcome back to the Quorum. Next, we're going to go right into our panel discussion. We each want to give our own perspectives on how we feel about policing in America. We really appreciate Art's history and background, and I know that's something we are going to continuously rely on throughout our program. but we want to give our own perspectives. Everybody doesn't know the history of policing or where police originated from or why do we need them. We police our own homes all the time. So we're going to start with Apollo and let him give his perspective on early history of policing, and we'll go from there. Thank you. Apollo?
Yes, thank you very much, Kavina. I appreciate you introducing me in such a, let's say, strong fashion. I appreciate that. So my 5 minutes starts now, and I'd like to begin with the purpose of police in America, how, when, and why it was assembled. Like Art touched on earlier, my research shows that in 1833 was the first to organize a police force in Philadelphia, which was followed by Chicago in 1835, which eventually turned into the Pinkerton National Detective Agency, which is a private security. It was a private security guard and detective agency assembled in the United States by a Scotsman named Alan Pinkerton in the 1850s, and currently a subsidy of Securitas AB.
Securitas.
Yeah, what was that? Art? Touch on that.
It's a security agency.
It's a security
Yeah,
company.
it still exists, right?
Yeah, I worked for them. I literally worked for Securitas in 2014.
Wow, they have a
Oh my
lot of history.
goodness.
Wow.
And it was a great company.
Yeah, it was founded
I
in
love
Chicago,
working
Illinois, in the United States in the 1850s, like I said. It later played a really, really big role in the industrial revolutions during strikes like Art touched on earlier. In New York in the 1845, in New Orleans, 1853, and then the sheriffs and deputies, which originated, like Art said, from England. This is the early views on how policing actually originated, and like Art said, the main reason in the South was basically catching and bringing back slaves, and in the North, it was basically keeping folks in line and making sure they didn't go on strikes and beat people to a pulp that wanted to be scabs. I guess they called them scabs because these people felt as if they needed to be scabbed up. And that's what they did, and the officials at the time needed to keep that in line because people that owned these businesses had to keep it rolling. Couldn't have people all damaged and not able to work. So pre-Civil War, Deep South agricultural, like he said, were slave catchers. These are individuals that just volunteered to go out. I don't even know why you would want to be a human being that's a slave catcher to start off with. Like, what would be inside you to want to chase down a human being and then be his jury and executioner? You know, sometimes it feels as if that small part of the evil still lingers in individuals that make them stand up and want to go join a police force. You know, it's a part of it's part of the human being. It's somewhere in there. Some people know how to check it. Some people really don't, and they go out there and do it. And now we have a situation here today where you can be protected by legislation if you have that piece in you. You know, I joke with Peter Rowe, who is I believe he's a writer of Union Tribune, and I said if I wanted to kill people and get away with it, literally I would just join the police force.
Right.
Wow.
Learn how it's done, pop people,
Yeah.
and it's perfectly fine. Not only kill people, but kill people, overkill people. Shoot someone 22 times.
And say you were in fear.
Yeah, I was scared. Wait a minute, this legislation here says that if I say I'm scared, I can get off. Not only that, after I shoot and kill them, I get 10 days off to relax and figure out what I need to do. You know,
Still getting paid.
it's still getting paid.
Get your
by the
story
way.
together.
Still getting paid, by the
Yeah.
way. So, you know, it feels like whatever was in the slave catchers in the Deep South still lingers today somehow, some way. I don't know if it's culturally. I don't know whether it's, you know, you're taught that way or you just really don't have very much remorse for human beings and find a way to allow that evil within yourself, you know, to carry out these acts. You know, so that's my touch on that. You know, the Civil War of, we all know it started around 1861, 1865. The war began when the Confederate soldiers, this and that, had some issues. Exactly. Ulysses S. Grant was there, and I guess the relationship between property owners, which were white men at the time, and police, you know, that were designated the responsibility to serve and protect the property's interests, to serve and protect, you know, is a phrase that was made famous, Art, by, what was it, the Los Angeles Police Department?
To protect and serve?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, to protect and serve was actually created in the 1950.
To protect and serve.
Yeah.
To serve who?
Exactly, to serve the interest of individuals, you know, who purchase property within neighborhoods that
We're
might
purchasing it from somewhere else.
exactly.
We're not purchasing
you know.
it from ourselves. We're not buying things from ourselves. We are all serving someone else higher. And it's not as high as our spiritual gods may be, but we're serving someone. So are they.
Yeah,
They don't go into it with that thinking. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
That's my opinion.
The origin of Protect and Serve came from LAPD Police Academy in 1955, and it became the department's official model in 1963, 2 years before the Watts riots.
Wow, and it was adopted all over the United States, and apparently to protect police interest, to protect and serve, to protect the citizens and their property from the criminal element, which is kind of interesting. You know, I researched that up, is protect the citizens and their property from the criminal element.
It's basically to maintain order.
Right.
Exactly. And
I can't.
what if a citizen doesn't have property? Is he the one who?
We are property. Let's touch on that for a second.
You know,
We are
I'm
property.
sure you will pretty soon. You know.
Yeah, you can become the property. That's the problem. That part of the
Human
problem.
capital.
Is there's a loophole in the 13th Amendment that allows indentured servitude and slavery for worker people convicted of crimes, and so those people actually don't have the same type of rights as you and me would have. They only go off of the 13th Amendment. It's actually the basis for the prison industrial complex that's been popping up recently.
Wow, recently it's been going on for a bit. It's just been being
going on
brought
for a bit.
up to the public's eye more recently. And I like to also touch on the early culture of bonding, brotherhood, fraternity, you know, in this early stage of police development. Yeah.
So now so what we're going to be doing now is, what are we doing?
You're gonna go ahead and give your perspective.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We want to know exactly what's
We got to get
happening.
the hand signals.
Sorry about that.
That's cool. So the my perspective is when I first got into when I first wanted to become an MA, it's not, they kind of told me that, hey, you'll be able to use your head, you'll be able to help people out and stuff like that. So I had this very, very sanitized version of what police were back in the day. I would watch a lot of cops, think that's what they do. They hunt drug people and people who beat their wives.
Drug
or something
dealers,
like
I'm
that.
assuming.
Yeah, drug dealers. Anyone with drugs are gonna take
Or
down.
manufacturers.
But so when I got in, I saw a lot of my coworkers really trying to bust people, trying to find reasons to fight with people, trying to get them mad, telling them to shut up, you know, belittling them in front of like their wives or something like that. And it was, you can tell that, and the people who really got into it, the ones who got into all the fights and stuff like that, they got all the promotions, they got all the awards.
People who were carrying through the order from the top more rigorously than others, basically. They had that.
Right. My apologies. I had my hand up because I just wanted to intercept with the fact that we have. I guess this is a cat fact.
Yes.
Cat
Wildcat
stat.
with the fact and stats.
With the fact and stats. So part of our data that we collect is officers who have brutalized and killed somebody who remain on the beat, who are still sworn in and still serving, quote unquote. What we have noticed is that some officers who are on that list, after they have killed somebody, have actually gotten raises. Their salary has increased.
I know Gonzalez is shot. My brother definitely has a desk job now. You know.
Now that probably has its own perks, but he's still within the department.
Exactly.
He still is walking
So,
out in public. He can still go.
There's
get
something
coffee.
there's
And
something
he's had other
about
problems, too.
there's something about serving and protecting. I always thought it meant the elite who reinforce the laws which devastate like people in economic disparity, and folks who, you know, the American dream, where if you work hard, you'll be rewarded, and anybody who does not cannot pay their rent, cannot, you know, support themselves. There's something wrong without understanding the actual societal ills that plague Black, brown, oppressed communities, even more so with Trump being in office. So I always thought, you know, they're protecting property, and they're serving the ruling class. They're serving an elite class.
Exactly. And that's what it is that they're not really serving the public.
Yeah.
You know, they're serving city officials, they're serving themselves.
Yeah, and I hear the word elite, when I hear people say, oh, they're serving the elite crew or whatever, that doesn't make me feel like, oh, why not me? I feel elite too. So I want to know exactly, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean serving the elite? Not from you guys here with me, but I want to know from them. Well, who are you serving if you're not serving the public? Who are you really serving? The elite is money, right? So you're serving the dollar sign. So if you can carry a certain amount of money under your name, then you can be considered elite as well. Is that right?
I believe so. White collar, blue collar, working class.
We're definitely in a class struggle here. There's
that goes all the way back to Egyptian social structure.
Yeah, so ultimately what I realized was that it was not conducive to what I wanted to do, which was actually to help people. You know, sitting and waiting for DUIs was not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to try and bust people just for the sake of busting them, when you could much easily help them. And that's basically my perception about that. There's been a huge abuse of public trust going on for a long time, and you know, whether it's beatings or killings or sexual harassment, or planning drugs and lying about incidents. We've heard about these new incidents where they're planning drugs and then they turn on their cameras. They don't know that the camera's already recording them planting the stuff in the people's wallets. It's ridiculous.
Sure.
Thank you.
Actually, there was something that I wanted to add as far as early police misconduct, if we're still talking about, because with what Art has brought us up to speed until, I want to say, Civil War, and I do have some information which we can share post Civil War. But an early example of police misconduct, because it's not new. This is historical. One of the first groups appointed to examine complaints of police corruption was the Lexow Commission. After issuing 3,000 subpoenas and hearing testimony from 700 witnesses, which produced more than 10,000 pages of testimony, Lexow investigation revealed 4 main conclusions: that the police did not act as guardians of public peace, and we're talking about early instances of police corruption. Instead, they acted as agents of Tammany Hall. Second, instead of suppressing vice activities such as gambling and prostitution, officers allow these activities to occur with the condition that they receive a cut of the profits. And this is something that you see as current as Oakland, where the Oakland officers were actually saying, we're going to protect prostituted women or sex workers, however they identify, as we'll protect you if you do a favor for us.
Wow.
And this was actually about 2 years ago. Yeah.
Testify.
Either that or
that's the favor. You have to testify. If I don't know this personally, but I do know from research, I do know that you do have to testify if you go into jail or anywhere and you're saying that someone's holding you hostage or someone is pressuring you to do something outside of your will. They want you to make a statement and testify on the dotted line, period, point blank.
Sure.
Otherwise, you don't get the same protection.
Sure, and it's usually just whatever can benefit the officers. There's one more that I want to say. Detectives only looked for stolen property if they would be given a reward for doing so. And finally, there was evidence that the police would often harass law-abiding citizens and individuals with less power in the community. Again, it goes to a class analysis. After the Lexo investigation ended, several officers were fired, in some cases convicted of criminal offenses. Sometime later, the courts reversed these decisions, allowing the officers to be rehired. These actions by the courts demonstrate the strength of political influence in American policing during this time period. So we're still talking about we're still talking about from the, the 1900s, the early 20th century. But it's nothing new. It's nothing new about politicians having a lot of say.
Definitely. So, Kavina, what is your perception here
Okay,
not on this matter, but basically,
I have a perception already.
The early history of policing and in relation to what's going on now, basically getting down to the things that are going on. Hit me up. Thank you for the facts, Miss Cat.
Well, I'm going to give a perspective of a female, a divine female. I know that all of us out there that are mothers or wives or sisters or daughters, we are looking at all of this as chaos. What is happening? Where's the compassion? Where is the logic in what's happening? It doesn't make sense. So I have to take it back further and understand, why do we need outside people to police us? Why can we not police ourselves? Why can we not police our own family? Why do we need outside authority? It takes me back further because I know that I'm not from here originally. I know that many of us are not from this continent. We may not be from this land. We don't understand the times. And so we go against it. We go against what we don't feel comfortable with. We don't feel connected to it. I don't connect with it, but I can connect to the structure of organization, of a business, of a group of individuals, of a community. We have to have structure. So my perspective is, if we are able to look within ourselves as stronger individuals than what we are perceived to be, then we may gain control. If we can understand what our rights are, if we can understand who we really are as humans on this planet, then we may be able to police ourselves and then spread that activity and that energy to our family members, to our community leaders, to our youth, to our children, everyone. We need to be able to be accountable for ourselves. I'm not going to look too deep into the history of why we're here, because we have to move forward. As long as we continue to look back into the actions of others and to the times of others, we may not be able to see forward and know where we're going next. Let's be accountable for ourselves. Let's tell ourselves what to do next. Let's not look to outside windows, other people that seem smarter, stronger, more powerful, more elite. We are the elite. We are the people that need to make the difference.
That's right.
There's no one else that's going to come and make things better besides us. We're here, we're doing it now. That's my perspective. Thank you.
Wow.
Good one.
Well, thank you very much, Kavina. You still have some time, though. You
I
keep
have plenty more to say.
Well,
I want to make sure
it.
that if there's anything
Use your
anyone
time
wants to say to me,
wisely.
I want you guys to call in 619-919-2305. I know my phone's been vibrating. I have emails coming in. I just want to have a perspective of peace. I want to understand, why do we have so much combativeness? What is really going on right now? I know in my house, I have 2 sons. They live primarily with their father. We take turns. We have a good unit going on, a good dynamic. And I always have to consider that my children live in Detroit, Michigan, and it is dangerous out there. But at the same time, I don't rely on the police station or the sheriffs or anyone there. I don't have the expectations of them to protect my children on a daily basis. I have to instill within my sons the rights that they have to command their own respect, to command their own authority, command their own boundaries and guidelines. There's no one that you can call that can do better for yourself than you. So do that. And that's what I will instill into every person that I meet. That is, expectations of others are nothing if you can't expect yourself the same.
That's right. I agree with that 100%.
Same here, same here. If there's anybody listening that wants to call in for a community interaction, we would really, really like to hear what you have to say and get into the discussion. I understand this is definitely our first show, so we might not have the phones all, backed up. But if you do want to hear something, you do want to talk about something, please give a call. If not, we're going to sit here and continue to have the discussion around this. And I do have some perspective too. My perspective was throwing out a lot of facts and so on and so forth. But the history of early policing has definitely woken me up to the ideas of that it's cultural. It comes from a culture. It's devised from a culture. The nucleus of policing is the early settlements of America and their cultures, the South and the North all intertwine into one. And it seems as if in relation to what Art said, that they look for this in recruiting. Mm-hmm. That's what they look for when they see someone that does not have that portion of them that can be that vicious and be what it used to be like in the South, the stuff that you needed to be a slave catcher. You're not coming in. You have to be like that to be a part of it. And that's one of the issues. And the thing is that they protect themselves with legislations. The fraternity of police, they have thousands. These stats, they have thousands all over this entire nation. They come together. They have the power to decide whether or not a legislation that affects them can be law. That's absurd. Right. In the state of California right now, there's a law that can't be passed until the fraternity of police says that, yeah, we're cool with that.
The union.
Yes.
You know, to the union. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
And if things have been going good for so long and then someone wants to come and implement change amongst a union member or a bunch of union members, that's not going to be easy.
That all have the same installation of this early culture of,
controlling behavior,
people going and getting and catching slaves and bringing them back. That is what it's devised from. And now they're an organization that can make decisions based on their own interests. Their purpose is not to make sure that the human being out there's life is worth more than the cop's life. They're not worried about that. They want to make sure that the police officer is protected regardless what he does to that property on the street. Mm-hmm. And that's how it is. And that is exactly how it is. And that's a sad truth, because what do we have? We have the NAACP. We have groups like NAN all over the nation. These people can actually have committees within that organization to be able to create something that can combat something like the fraternity of police that is already so large. But we are the generation that needs to take it to the next step. It seems like the NAACP has been sleeping on the highest level, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm not calling anybody out. That has a lot to do with our involvement in seeing where it needs to go. They have fought to get it to a place where they are powerful enough to be able to sit in the Oval Office and make decisions and make laws.
People hear NAACP and think that they're important. They don't know their exact role.
What are we doing as the people to get involved and make these committees? Most people don't understand that is a possibility. That is the only way to mobilize a people to be able to have laws and say, we don't like this. You can't be one individual saying F the police. That's not going to bring legislative change. It might make you feel better for a day.
It's a trend for a couple of
not even a day, a few hours,
Right, we've seen all the movies.
Yeah, show us how you're going to F the police.
Yeah, exactly.
Show us, what does that mean to you? How does that materialize?
And personally, I have to say, I don't feel that way. I can't make that statement. These are all perspectives. If they feel that way, it's an open door.
I call the police still. If I hear loud sounds outside my apartment building, I feel like, dang, I better call the police, that number, 911, to come and regulate those criminals. But I don't think I rely on them the same way for my own well-being. If I was in a predicament of needing help, I'd probably call my lawyer before I would call the police officer. Unfortunately, the lawman and the policeman, part of the same Babylon. We'll touch on that later. But I will understand their rights and their intentions.
I don't call the police. I'll tell you that straightforward. I do not call the police. I don't want to call the police.
You lose control of the situation as soon as you call the police.
Because they're gonna put procedures in. They're gonna put procedures in to deal with the situation, and those procedures. All right, Cat with a fact. Cut me off. Let's see what the deal is. She's.
I'm sorry, I am just burning up with information. So, what I do want to say is, I want to put out there that every individual has the capability of monitoring police. They are public servants, technically. We do pay their salaries with tax dollars.
That's right.
Listening to audio scanners almost on a 24-hour basis, the interactions they have when they are dispatched to locations. What is the reasoning? What is the reporting party's? What is the reporting party reporting? Is it something they heard? Is it something they feel? There is so much that when people call in that could be solved by neighbors actually stepping up, as what you were saying, Kavina.
Banding together as a community.
As a community, they don't prevent crime.
No.
There was actually 2 instances where like communities happened in front of a liquor store, right in front of my house. Somebody tried to carjack a vehicle with a mother and child in it.
Wow.
And so the store owners and everybody banded together, pulled the man out of the car, did what they call a citizen's arrest. So when police came, the person was safe. They were completely coherent. They were talking. Unfortunately, they were talking a little too much, incriminating themselves, saying they've done this before. But they prevented the crime. And what I see is just this overreaction of people calling in when, they hear a loud noise, they hear a bang, or they hear people arguing, and they're assuming that something could escalate. So quite possibly it's a lot of... it's instances where they could investigate themselves or not feel that this is worthy of a criminal offense because they don't have any proof.
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff that comes over on the audio scanner, which kind of is just gossip. Like, I have a feeling this person's running. They could be armed. Like, we would literally hear that, or people fighting in the alleyway, or people arguing in the alleyway. Someone's being loud.
People loud, yeah.
Because of that, it's just this overuse of this hypervigilance to call police whenever something is not the norm.
It's our human nature to regulate each other. It's natural for us to see another human and we instantly regulate them. Are they sick? Are they a threat? Are they safe? Are they criminal? And as soon as we get the authority, a phone number to call, all we have to do is dial a number, and we can get someone else to co-sign that thing that we think is correct. That is a lot of power we think we have. We think we have. But if you're able to use your own judgment, if you were that police officer and you're out there doing that, there's something that goes numb after a while.
Yeah,
I guarantee.
Or they're assuming the worst. They're assuming the worst is going to happen.
Just like at work, you're just going to drop into that protocol or maybe into that rendition that you've been used to. Okay, observe and report. I just need to make sure I have all the facts to fill out that form, and that's what we can't deal with as humans. That's not fair. It's not fair.
Agreed. Yeah, because
police are not meant to solve societal ills.
Just like doctors are not meant to cure you. Pharmacists are, but yet we still go to doctors so that we can be diagnosed and feel better and everything is okay. But they have a hand-in-hand relationship with the pharmacy, and we'll touch on that later on in another program. But it has a lot to do with what our expectations are as people in society. We're in a controlled behavior society. We need to understand that there are certain rules to make it. You got to play the rules of the game, or you're not going to make it.
And I also think that the further up you are in the upper echelons,
for sure,
the more afraid you are of the rest of society.
Right.
Exactly. That's what I think a lot of is fueled.
Yeah.
So
and I think what happens is there's a disconnection there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone's perspective on the panel discussion. This has been so great. We really look forward to the next episode where we can touch on everyone's input and all of the emails and everything that are coming through. So if you'd like to email us, you can go ahead and check out the website kblkradio.com. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to our civil deliverance before we sign off tonight. This morning, sorry. And so I'm going to go ahead and introduce. All right, we don't know. If you're watching this later on, thank you for listening.
Thanks for watching.
Watching. Everyone that's watching us live on YouTube, everyone that's watching this live stream, we want to say thank you very much for tuning in. We're going to go ahead and introduce Guinevere Jones, our attorney that's here to offer this civil deliverance. Thank you.
Yes, I am here with the civil deliverance, and we're going to start off with a clip by a man by the name of Ben Crump. Ben Crump represented Trayvon Martin's family in the case in Florida that took place, we all know about, made national news, and currently is representing Stephon Clark's family up in Northern California. I had the privilege of meeting him and talking to him about legislative resolution style issues. And he left a clip here that we're going to play, and with that clip I'm going to get some feedback from Mrs. Jones, who's here with us today, and I want to thank her very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, That clip? Just a second. Please bear with us. Turn that up. She needs to hear it.
It's really about transparency plus accountability equals trust. And we don't want anything special or extra. We just want the same justice for our family that you give anybody else's family. You know, we don't want you to police us and then go and protect and serve everybody else. And so we got to keep record of it. And if we don't keep record of it, if we don't stand up for justice and fight for due process, then shame on you when it comes to your doorstep.
All right, wow, that was extremely powerful.
Yes, it was. I want to thank Ben Crump for that one. Thank Reverend Shane Harris for putting together that particular segment at the Hall of Justice earlier last month. And I'd like some feedback from you, Mrs. Jones. What do you think about documenting of all these cases, civil rights cases that are going on, and how can that affect some kind of legislative change?
So I'll take that in two parts. The first is I absolutely believe that we should be documenting the injustices that are going on in communities all around the nation. Mm-hmm. I think that it's not enough for us to simply talk about it. We need to show what's happening, and we can't be afraid to say, this happened today, this happened yesterday, and not get tired of bringing it to the forefront. And so that's the importance of documenting. We want to make people tired of it happening, not tired of hearing us talk about it.
That's right.
So that we can actually get solutions.
Definitely.
He was spot on when he talks about how transparency and accountability equal trust. That's going to be the only way that we actually get these injustices remedied for communities that are impacted by this violent system that we have. So we've just seen legislation this week, and that's the solution, is to have legislators come in and say, this is what the community needs. I stand with the community, and I'm not afraid to introduce bills. And so this week we saw Dr. Shirley Weber from San Diego, a huge social justice warrior, introduce the Police Accountability and Community Protection Act. That is huge, because when we talk about holding police officers, law enforcement officers accountable, that makes the community protected.
That's true.
So that's the first part of it. And so with that particular bill, it changes the standard in when an officer is authorized to use deadly force. And the authorization is that you can only use deadly force if it is absolutely necessary to prevent imminent serious bodily injury or death. The other part is another bill that bill works in tandem with, which was introduced by Skinner from Berkeley, that running short on time, but it's SB 1421, where we would be able to look into police records. That's transparency, having the public be able to know when there are serious allegations against an officer. So both of those are important.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much for touching on that, Mrs. Jones. I appreciate you coming in, and I look forward to continuing to talk to you some more and see what we can get done. This brings me to the end of the deliverance, basically mobilization. There's so many people in our communities that don't really understand how government works to a certain point and don't want to get involved. The NAACP is a wonderful place to get started. It's a wonderful place to join committees that are doing things within the community. Matter of fact, you can bring up ideas to start a new committee. They will fund it if it's a great idea. So don't think that you are helpless. You have nothing to do. You're just crying along and being sad and having conversations about all these people that are getting shot, and it affects you. I had calls coming in from people I didn't even know in my life that were crying because my brother lost his life for such a foolish reason. Such a foolish reason that we can do something about. But we cannot combat these large entities that have established themselves for so long, since the beginning. They are the fabrics of this societies that we live in this country. We cannot combat them as individuals. Mobilization and organization through leadership. NAACP, if you like how NAN goes across doing their things in your face, their style, go with them, support them. become members of these foundations, get together and actually create an entity nationwide that can create legislations that can change our lives. That is my civil delivery from the Maya Quorum. Be one. Be luminous. God bless the Quorum. Have a wonderful day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Peace, and we're out.
Bye.
Play the outro, bro.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for coming out to Satterfield.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that. That was nice for having me, because we definitely want to. And I wrote down the code SB 1421 because I want to look into that.
Yes,
that's like HIPAA. It's the Health Insurance Accountability Portability Act. And then they have like Leasing Accountability Portability Act.
Yes.
So I feel like that's so
And it's new, and so what they're doing is they just introduced it, so we need to actually be calling our representatives and saying, get behind this, and yes, let's pass this
So
bill.
I want to make sure that I put that for anybody that wants to hear more about it.
Yes.
That's good.
I talked about this stuff for 2 hours, so yes,
Thank
I'm
you so much.
glad to be here. So
I wrote that on this. I want to write that on mine too. Babe, do you have? Oh, I got it right here.
I think we should do another Origins of Police, because we got like the first half.
Yeah, we still have so much to say.
No.
SB 1421. You heard that? They have one like HIPAA for police. So like HIPAA, well, it's not like HIPAA. HIPAA is totally different, but it just sounds like HIPAA.
I know what you're saying. It's like one of those.
Yeah, it is. We have to enforce HIPAA for it to be.
Genevieve?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
That's somebody for you to be.
Let me see if my next guest is here.
He's got a
I wrote
picture.
down baby.
Okay, can I get past me here?
Actually, no, I'm going to step out of the way. I hope I'm not in the way. What's your name? Catherine. Catherine Mendoza.
did we? Yeah.
I
we
am
messaged.
I'm a best bud of Eva Posner.
Yes.
Yes. You know, she mentioned to me. She mentioned to me about a radio show only because we film police and we want to prevent instances, and we track the officer-involved shootings, brutalizations, and we actually keep a list of officers who are still on the beat that have brutalized and killed. We also keep track of how much they make, and so this is pretty much like a 24-hour thing that we do. We kind of get some crap from officers, and we understand that. I'm sure you support filming police.
Absolutely.
I know it's with us, we tend to be a little more controversial, and whatever we can do under legality, practicing our amendment right under the Constitution, we do. Long story short, Eva messaged me saying that there was an interview that said you supported Cockroach.
Yes, I've been doing so many interviews, but
Totally.
And I just did it this week. I said it. It was the podcast. What's the name of that podcast? Intercepted was Wednesday. It was the one before that. It was. Okay, I can get you the name. I absolutely said it. It was last week. It was a podcast. I think they're out of North County. But let me look at my calendar.
Okay.
That's the best way to remember.
Totally.
Where I said it.
And you know what? She just messaged me saying that she was very excited. I didn't know. See, this is okay. I guess if you have to view us on the status quo.
Uninformed States of America. That's where the podcast was. Uninformed States of America.
Uninformed States of America. Because we're kind of lean towards the far left. We're kind of on the left. Because we don't, even the ACLU, okay, thank you. But even ACLU, they kind of like to rebrand cop watching as far as legal observing. The legal observers that they train don't film.
Yeah.
Sorry? Because we're out, only because we've gotten everything from, and this is stuff that we hear over on the scanner, that we're terrorists, that we do false calls. A lot of it's very, I want to say borderline slanderous from some of the cops. They know us by now in City Heights, that we're not going to go anywhere and we don't interfere. Sometimes if they talk to us, we'll talk back. And remind them that we're not interfering and they need to do their job, focus on themselves. So I didn't know if it was actually saying that you support film the police versus supporting cop watch.
I support you watching cops, being there on the scene, recording. It's important. We know what happens when they think they're not being filmed, and we absolutely need to document interactions. I mean, look at what happened at Helix. He didn't realize someone was filming him, so he lied in his report. And then when the footage came out, oh, well, you know. So, no, I absolutely support it. That's the only way to keep them honest.
Because the minute, you know, if they come out saying that our body-worn camera footage is going to be public knowledge, until that happens.
Right. And that's a policy that I have, that I want it released and in a finite timeline, so the public knows when they're going to get body-worn camera footage. But I also believe that recordings that you all take should be made public as well, because that's also footage of what happened, not a certain angle. So we, I mean,
yeah. So we do it live, and you know, of course, like any kind of utilization of like Facebook Live and YouTube Live, and just making sure, like, you know, this officer makes $130,000 a year, and you know his behavior is not up to par. So it's unfortunate, because we also want to kind of push to divest in some police departments, because we think that they get paid just a little too much. Yeah. Especially when they're getting the slap on the hands.
I would love to see those numbers.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know you've messaged me, but maybe you can email me if I give you a card, because I would love to continue the communications with you. And
totally. Cool. Yeah. I'd appreciate that. Do you have a business card with you? Okay.
I do.
Because for some reason, cop watch, some people are like, so what do you do? Well, it's kind of self-explanatory.
Sorry, people. Yes. Email me here. I would love to continue the conversation with you, for sure.
Thank you. And Eva and I go way back. I'm kind of her evil twin. She works within the system, and I'm just like, I'm a happy little anarchist.
I love it.
Okay, well, you heard it. Ooh, Genevieve Jones, right? She visited. Okay. Give me the card. She said that she supports.
Just talking to Art about that. Get a copy. Right.
And thank you. It's always good seeing you.
Always good seeing you.